Welcome to the Bio-Supply Management Alliance, the global community of supply chain professionals in the biopharma industry. I am yours truly, Devendra Mishra, the Executive Director of BSMA. The webinar today is actually a demonstration of an industry platform which integrates the functions of clinical trials, meaning the drug sponsor, who's at the hub of it all, the CRO, the CDMO, the logistics service providers, and many, many others. As a housekeeping matter, before I turn it over to the experts, is simply the recording of this event will be made available to you in less than a week from today. And secondly, please ask as many questions as come to your mind by using the Q&A chat button at the bottom of your screen. The Q&A chat button, Q&A button, to be honest. Use that iconic button, raise your questions, and if we don't get to all your questions today, I promise you on behalf of the team that answers to those questions will be mailed to you down the road. So it's my privilege to introduce the three exceptional experts who have helped build this platform that we're going to demonstrate. My good friend Damien D. Shilaz, the CEO and the co-founder of Catalyx. He has built this platform for visibility and collaboration in the supply chain with the mission, and this is very critical, to catalyze trust. I said trust in the supply chain. A former banker of New York, I recall him being a pioneer in blockchain and other B2B platforms when he worked for Capgemini. His co-founder, Thomas Zakrevsky, popularly known as Thomas Z, is the Chief Product and Technology Officer and, of course, the co-founder of Catalyx as well. Thomas's expertise is in data protection, in predictive analytics, and emerging technologies, and you'll find out for yourself when he makes a demonstration what his true capabilities are. And the glue that puts it all together is Carla Reed, a veteran of our industry. She has a reputation of establishing best practices in our industry, from discovery all the way to patient care. And I know of no one who's more comprehensive in the work she has done to develop process models, information systems, and technology enablers over the last 30 plus years. So may I turn it over to the experts? So Damien, would you kindly take it away from here, please? Thank you, Damien.
Thank you, Devendra. Hello, everyone. So, yeah, BioNX it's a visibility platform. It's an orchestration platform that is designed for the biotech community and was actually, it comes from a white paper or working group that we had last year as part of the BSMA that really focused on developing those, addressing those unmet needs of the biotech community. You may know that the supply chain of biotech are extremely challenging. They are super complex from a workflow standpoint. When you think of cell and gene therapy or radioligand in particular, they are highly sensitive from a temperature standpoint. There is a low degree of supply chain maturity. Typically, when you have a biotech, you don't have an army of supply chain officers. You discover the complexity as you go, and you need help there. And last but not least, you don't have too many systems in place. In some situations, you just have Excel to manage that kind of complex supply chain. So we thought there was a clear need to come up with a community platform that would help connect the biotech to those service providers that are serving them, those biotech. And here we have in mind the CRO, the CDMO, the specialty courier, the packaging companies, and any consulting firm that is addressing these complex markets. So BioNX is this. And we love the analogy of the supply chain as being the Formula One, the supply chain of biotech as being the Formula One. It's all about synchronization, optimization. What you see on the screen now is probably in the driving seat is the biotech. And could think of those people around as being the service providers. They all need to know what they have to do. It's all about the chain of custody, the planning of all those tasks, and the proper execution on time. And so when you think of this Formula One, you think of the pit stop, and that's exactly what I showed you, the time it takes to achieve such a task. You can think of it as the handoff or the handover in the supply chain, step by step. And all this needs to be measured and improved continuously. That's about evidence-based supply chain performance, and that's what we bring through BioNX. We want to really bring that kind of precision performance to the supply chain of biotech. That's our mission, if you will. Now, being much more specific on the pain points and the challenges of biotech in the supply chain, I would love to hand it over to Carla to deep dive into this and tell us about stories where she really saw pain points related to that complex supply chain. Over to you, Carla.
Thank you, Damien. And after that, I'm going to be a little more down to earth and less exciting. I don't have any racing cars, but I do have some real world stories. As Devendra mentioned, I've been working in this industry for quite a while, and I've actually been part of the evolution of the biotech supply chain. And one of the key things that I think is different these days is we have a much more personalized supply chain going from patient to patient. And so that is very different and it becomes far more time sensitive. So that really, I think, is the key thing. And there's a big focus on the patient journey. So from the patient acquisition, when patients enroll, they have that expectation of a change, but basically a life-changing therapy. So it's really important to support that patient journey from enrollment through the production of the drug product all the way back to the clinic where the patient gets that elixir of life. So if you think of some of the key challenges across this network, which as Damien mentioned, includes a lot of different disparate organizations who have their different information systems in place. So you have a lot of fragmentation at the information level, and the current situation includes a lot of handoffs, a lot of information exchange using email, telephone, and there's a lot of chasing. So that one of the major needs in the industry is a single shared dashboard and a way for each of the participants to manage the activities that they have to perform. So thinking about the race car analogy, everybody knows what they need to do and being able to know when exactly to the moment through visibility, real time is critical. Another key element that's very important is we tend to have a lot of geographic boundaries. So understanding what the information requirements are for regulatory compliance as well as trade compliance, not only for the drug product, but for some of the raw materials, which can include things like antiviral vectors and a lot of human components. So having a platform that brings it all together and gives the community what they need when they need it so they can act on the information is absolutely critical. And I think we will be able to illustrate to you how this problem is being solved. So back to you, Damien.
Thank you, Carla. So just a simple representation of this complex ecosystem. The biotech sponsor is in the center, obviously, and interacting with a number of service providers, the clinical research organization, the CDMO on the manufacturing side, the specialty courier that handle those very complex shipments and store them in many respects, the clinical networks where you have the patients, the lab networks, and so on. So this platform is simple. It's designed to bring together those stakeholders around the biotech sponsor for one thing, to bring better outcome to patients, obviously. And that's not, it's obvious to say, it's not obvious to execute. And that's why we spend so much time refining this offering. If anything, the unique value proposition is summarized in 5 bullet points. It provides visibility, command, and control. That's the most important thing. Anyone in the chain, starting with the biotech sponsor, needs visibility on the chain of condition and process flow. They need to feel in command and in control. And that's essential. That's the key. Now, it's all about trust, as Devendra said. And by the way, everything we're doing here in healthcare supply chain is about trust. That's why you have so much need for transparency, auditability, compliance, etc. Because at the end of the day, it's about patient trusting that they receive the right product with the right product integrity, and supply chain is all about that. It's all about collaboration. Everyone speaks about collaboration. I know it's dear to the heart and the DNA of BSMA. It's all about collaboration, but you have to enable collaboration in real time across a complex chain of custody, chain of identity. So collaboration is key. Think about it as a collaboration platform. It's also about innovation. We need to elevate the game when it comes to supply chain, serving healthcare and clinical trials, because the science is going so fast on the R&D side that we now need to really get to a point of sophisticated, real-time, Formula One style supply chain. And so driving innovation is key. Transforming patient outcomes, again, is obvious, but it's central to everything we're doing. Hand over to you, Carla, on this subway map of the supply chain.
Right. Well, thank you, Damien. And just looking at the subway map, in many cases, is a really good illustration for some of the complexity that is faced by each of the participants. And that literally is a subway map. And we're using this to represent the fact that when you get onto the subway, at your subway station, you will have a lot of other people who are on the same journey, but they all have a different objective. And I think that that is a really good way of thinking about this community. So depending on my role in this community of different players, if I'm a clinical trial sponsor, I'm concerned about the patient enrollment. I'm also concerned about when am I going to be able to treat the patient and how can I accelerate the clinical trial process for a successful outcome. So those are the key things that I'm looking at, and I need not only to plan for and execute the different activities, I also need to have good, granular, accurate information about what is happening, where it's happening, when it's happening, so that I can better serve that market. The environment that we're talking about tends to be a highly outsourced environment. So, as Damien mentioned, we have labs who are involved with a lot of the testing for patient qualification and to ensure the quality and integrity of the product that is actually produced and infused or given to the patient. And so a lot of those activities need to be coordinated because the labs have a very large role. And then the production is normally done by contract manufacturers. So they need to really have visibility into all of the phases from the clinical side so that they know when they are expecting to enroll programs, what patients, what is the patient population, so they can do their production planning. And then, of course, you have the transportation providers who move the pieces and parts all together and keep the wheels turning. And then, obviously, as Damien illustrated in the driving seat, we have the biotech company who is the beneficiary and the sponsor. of these trials. So it's a very diverse community, but everybody participates to, contributes to, and uses information generated from other entities, which is why it's so important to have that environment where there's ultimate trust, ultimate data integrity, visibility, and accuracy. So I've personally, these actually are not very attractive slides because they were extracted from an actual working document that I've developed over the years with different teams and with customer communities, which includes all of the constituents that I made reference to. And I think what's really interesting is that as I've worked with different companies, some of them have been different or at different stages in their own journeys. They're moving in from research and development into a phase 1 clinical trial, and they're having to think about things like, do I have GMP grade materials? And what standard operating procedures do I need to put in place so that when I move from my 1 to 2 to 3 into a commercial environment and final approval, I have the infrastructure in place and all of the controls that I need to be compliant. So part of going through this process mapping exercise not only illustrates what each of the milestones and key steps are in the process, it looks at the participation, the interconnectivity, and the RACI matrix. So throughout the process, there are different people that are literally generating the information or using the information, and it's rather like a baton race. You need to have visibility and awareness of what should be happening versus what actually does happen so that you can make sure that there's no slips or fumbles on the way. So a key piece of what we've developed is looked at real world environments across the very extended community, all the way from patient enrollment in the clinical trial to production planning, then actual production, and then outbound shipments going to that point of patient and that ultimate patient journey conclusion. And then that has been integrated into a enforced best practice environment using the system. So I'm now going to pass it on to Tom, who has all the pieces that he's going to illustrate to us how it actually works and all comes together.
Thank you, Carla. So that's where the fun begins. We're going to digitize everything that we said before. So if you look at that map again, right, this is the metro web. And there's the same journey, but there are many views, right? The view of the metro, right, which is basically just a view of all the processes from the user perspective, and there are different users. We have the start, that we have the end. From the view of the lead actor, which is today the biotech, right? They would like to know everything, every bit of pieces of the information, because even though there are basically lanes that comes to the main line, belongs to some other vendors, some other customers, some supporting actors, I would call. They are still responsible, right? They are still responsible what happened with that product, with the manufacturing process, with the trial process, with the shipping process, with the conditions and adherence to all these regulatory requirements. So we're going to focus today on the biotech. However, right, there are many other views, right? From the CRO perspective, you would like to see the assets as the patients, and not only the shipments, but also the patients, how many are enrolled, whether everything is in control as far as that, the kit shipments and etc. The same thing with the CDMO, right? They are basically the key factor of collaboration between the sponsor, sometimes the CRO as well, the clinical side, the patient side. So there's a lot of collaboration on that. And of course, we can't forget about 4PL, 3PL. I mean, that line is actually blurred as of today, right? 10 years ago, it was very clear who is the 4PL and 3PL. Today, it's kind of like, mishmashing. But they are specialized logistics, right? Providers orchestrating and reporting on progress of the shipment. So you can only imagine that each of these supporting actors and even the main actor, they have their own systems, right? And very difficult to integrators from the technology point of view. And I was a technologist and I'm still a technologist, but always we look at how we can organize technology around it. We took a different approach. We took this RACI metrics where we work with Carla and organize the business context, because that's the fabric of this platform. And then from that, okay, we just pull the information from the other systems based on what needed for this particular protocol. And that's how we digitize the RACI metrics into the platform. And that's what we're going to present today. Let me share my screen with you. Hoping I'm going to write this screen, okay. Okay, let me know if you see the screens because I don't see the screen that I have.
Screen's up.
Okay, great. Yes. So, so what you're going to see, it depends who you are. This is my preference. So I look at that as the all shipments, but you can go, to the different, and you can save those filters, of course. You can go to the assets, right? And this is the helicopter view. Where are my assets? And my assets are the products, right? If I'm the shipper, the products. If I'm CDMO and I'm looking at the packaging, I'm taking a look at that. Well, where's my primary packaging, tertiary packages, and everything else, right? From the logistics, I'm also looking at the different things, right? But all the roads coming to the Rome, right? It's leading to the Rome. So if you look at a product, for example, right, you can look at that from the helicopter view. Where are those located, right? I can zoom in the different regions. Let's say I zoom in Atlanta somewhere. Now I can see it. Okay, there's 4 in an airline. And I can look at that. What is actually transport and where. I can see that the shipments that are using the packages and they are already stored in some facilities. I can look at that facilities itself, right? And I can, let's say this one has 6 storage rooms and this is virtual, right? Because I can tap into this. So if you are 3PL, 4PL that has the storage rooms or the warehouse that's serving multiple clients, you basically display only the clients that are related to you, that actually client that log it in. And then I look at what's in that row particular, right? Okay, well, let's see this. I open this. This is the some drug that is this by particular is a box size A, ready to go, and goes to the pharmaco and from the consignee. So you can basically look at that different type of assets from a different perspective. I mentioned the CDMO, right? The CDMO has the primary package. So they may look at that assets, not only the shipment of the product, right? But if I am an operational of, let's say, the packaging, I'm looking at, well, what is the SGT number, for the specialized, therapy? It has to be there, right? The chain of identity, if it's already in an enroute. I can quickly click on any of those and look at where are they? What's the status of that, right? Now, so this is the different type of preferences that you can save. My preferences always goes not to the assets itself. Also from the asset, you can go anywhere. As you have this web, metro web, you can come to the main line from different type of lines, right? And I would like to just go into the orchestration of the process, right? Which is essentially digitizing the RACI metrics. So from the RACI to the detailed task with assign responsibilities, accountabilities, because that's a RA, and then the C consulting, and I for the information. So once I have this RACI metrics, I know who is responsible milestone by milestone, and within the milestones, I have this different activities. So let me show it to you based on a CAR-T. The CAR-T is probably the most complex, orchestration of the process, because it has a lot of regulatory requirements, plus it has the two legs, right? Because you have apheresis, or you may have the apheresis in the first leg, where you have basically the sample. You take the sample of the patient, the cells of the patient, and then you moving to the manufacturing, and then you manufacturing and then go back to the hospital or clinic for the infusion. So that's why it makes a lot of complexities and a lot of different actors, supporting actors to manage the process. This one particular has been orchestrated by me a couple days ago, because that was a February 16th, so that was 2 days ago. We actually at the manufacturing cart T therapy. So we are in Anaheim at this moment. Now, these are fictitious, basically, shipper called the Card B Biotech, and then consignee is a Card T clinic. There is basically a specialty courier that is managing some of those milestones. But essentially, if you expand any of those, you can see that at the cell collection unit, and this is based on the RACI, right? You have to verify first the serial number, the matches of the sample on the box, secure in a container. You can trade items, which basically you assign the various serial number, batches, and etc., that you can trace from the asset management page. You put the logistic items. Yes.
I was just going to make a point there, because this is one of these areas that I really get excited about when I see this application, because this the actual acquisition of the patient material, and you're talking about CAR T there. In many cases, those are autologous products. So the actual patient that is going to be the recipient of the product is the donor of that patient material. And in many cases, these patients are very ill. And when the apheresis is gathered, it's so critical to handle them carefully so that your cell viability is there. So just looking at this is probably one of the things that I get most excited about, because here you have the visibility all the way from the patient material acquisition. You're able to monitor all the transportation events. And then at the receiving site, it's so important that once that product is about, or that material is about to be delivered, you have all of the right people available. And in most cases, you need to do some quality control at the point of receipt. So having a tool like this to include your quality team so that they are there to do the inspection and then manage that starting material in the best possible way to ensure ultimate cell viability and yield. So this is something that I really get excited about.
No, thank you, Carla, and you're absolutely right. And on top of this, of course, we have the workflow to-do list, which is basically the intelligent automation and support for any supporting actors, right? So in your RACI metrics, right, you basically codify who has to do what. Okay, and when we orchestrating these things, right, you basically see that in a number 2, which is right here, we missed the 3 actually very important steps. Nothing gets stopped, right? We continue, but we are being informed, and we are having also alerted in an exception. So if I look at it right here in more detail, I can see that, well, I did not confirm that CG Prep Lab with the CAR T clinic. Okay, so that's basically coordination that has to happen, right? But between basically the step of the setting up, which is the clinic side with the manufacturing side. Sometimes that role is taken by either by CDMO or 4PL or any other parties that are involved in this. Then, of course, well, we did not upload the escalation procedure, which we always can do that. Okay, so if I will upload here, I can pick it up, the escalation procedure. This is my exception escalation procedure, right? I just basically simply to put the COP here. But now I have uploaded. If something will happen, I can always go to the documentation. This is the invoice that has been before uploaded. That's my SOP that I did it just right now, right? It's 11:30. It's 11:30. It's good for me because I have still 10 minutes of the demo. And then, of course, communication SOP that also is available to you. So if you want to download this, you basically just download that. And this is, it's of course, is a dummy because I can't use the proper one. But you have the document control as well that is associated with that shipment. Not only associated with the shipment, but we also have the library of the documents. I'm not going to demo this, otherwise I would take that much more than 10 more minutes that I already have allocated. Now, you also mentioned, Carla, about the information, right? Because your AC metrics also have the I, which is the inform, right? So now if I go to the inform, this is my notification center, right? That's what I actually see that, it's being informed right now that I uploaded the document. Now, of course, if I have hundreds, thousands of shipments, I want to list the things that are important to me. And we give you the ability to filter and set it up this. I'm only interested in these shipments, or I only interested in the shipments this in this region, right? This is the interesting, this is the automated, okay? That means that, you know what, there's a lot of different data comes in, and based on the business rules and intelligence, we're just saying, you know what, we close that, we're moving to the next. Obviously, if that's not true, right, because the artificial intelligence is not 100%, that's not the deterministic system. This is basically probabilistic system, right? Then you have the option to say, no, 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 it was not correct. And then we apply the reinforcement learning on this particular process. So the system gets better and better as more the shipments you're going to get. Important here, right? When you said we got the information, right? But now there is also R, which is the responsibility, and A, which is accountability, right? So now what happens with this one? Look at this. We have the excursion, right? Let me take a look at the excursions here. Here's the exception management. We have a 3. This one, let's take a look in this one, right? Now, this one has been associated with shipments, 10 kilograms, investigation party, product, right? It's just a warning, okay, because we set essentially between minus 18, I believe that was this is minus 18 and a 0, right? But the warning temperature is -3. So anything between a -3 and a 0, we treat this as a warning, and we give you that warning. Now look at this. You made that warning excursion multiple times, right? And this is basically just at the cell collection unit, so you know which visibility step is. I can launch the map and see where that is. Obviously, this is done by simulator, so you can see it that this is happening in the central of the Europe. So it's not a real location. But what's interesting is if I go back, right, to this one, right, and look at this. This is, and it tells me, right, I'm off the truck. Well, obviously you're off the truck because we're supposed to be at the shipper White Plains, and the geolocation is somewhere else, right? Because we have the simulator, that's why. So we know we're off the track. Now, we can set the KPIs and set, well, if we're off the track that is scheduled, let's say in a radius mile, 10 miles is going to be KPI excursion. So there's a different type of excursions that you can set. But what's interesting in this shipment, which I don't have the setup for the other one, just because I have too many data to display it. This one is a chain of condition, right? So in this particular shipment, which is very similar to the first one, which is very complex, has 10 different steps. This only have like a tool one. I started, with the tool set collection unit and transport to the JFK. This one actually had the chain of condition. I can go back and forth. I can go back again to that same track condition temperature. And now I have the option what to do, right? Because if I'm responsible and also accountable for this, right, I have to take an action on it. Okay, so now I can choose remediate it because this is only the warning, or I can start non-compliance report, non-conformance report, And then if you have, which you of course have, an EQMS system, we can integrate with that. And then you basically just, it goes back and forth because all the data is here in this system, but you need to basically make that investigational, process. Or you just say, you know what, it's, this one is okay, right? And I submit it. Of course, everything is captured, all right? Everything is captured, so it says remediated by myself, February 18th, 11:35 local time. If you log in and you are in California, you're going to see 8:35 a.m. because always converts to the local time. I can download the full log. Okay. So if I download the full log and you may be actually sharing through the email, then I can see that basically, okay, what's the location, latitude, longitude, what's the status? I have a detailed temperature. The detailed temperature is captured from the IoT device, from the tracker, and we integrate this with particular visibility step, right? The visibility step in our system is that milestone that you define. So this is
Tom,
the cell phone collection unit. Yes, please, Carla.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. I just get really excited because today, in many cases, you're only really able to see if there has been an excursion on your shipment when you download the information from your data logger, because the data logger is not necessarily communicating during its journey. So here, what I see is something that is really needed in this industry is the ability when you have something that is out of control, that you're able to identify where is it, who needs to do something about it, and take care of it before it becomes a real problem. Because it's slightly out of kilter, I can do something. I can have a look to make sure that there is no problem. It hasn't been placed in the wrong position. It hasn't been left on the tarmac, which has happened. I've actually heard of that where aircraft will start loading and then they decide, well, we have enough cargo, and that poor shipment just gets left there in the burning sun. So I think that the fact that you've got something so dynamic and interactive and can notify whoever needs to know, whether it's the responsible party or the informed party, they can remediate, they can take action, and it continues along its way. So I'm sorry, I'll try not to interrupt again.
No. Your interruption actually helped me to to move on with this demo. So here you have, another example, another view, right? From the helicopter view, you have the tasks for this particular shipment that I demonstrated to you. These are the 6 tasks that are currently executed, 8 tasks that we are already executing them. However, in these milestones, they are not completed yet until we miss that. So depending on what's the matrix, race matrix says, is that basically is the KPI excursion, these two, we can basically capture that, and that will help you to make the assessment on analytics at the later time, what is going to really happen with the shipments going forward. Okay, so for example, this is the one of the pictures I gave to Damian when he described the formula. This is the pit stop. Okay, so even the whole race is perfect, meaning that it has been fulfilled within 2 or 3 days. The one that you plan, those pit stops, these visibility steps, which is the milestone number 2, you can see that the median, it should be 4 hours, right? Now we have 23 hours, 22 hours, 21 hours, 26, 16 hours, right? But the median should be 4, right? So now you can investigate, something that is in the hindsight, because you just do not know, and you will not know until you start measuring. So that's why it's important for us to collect all this data, different type of data, because just because we have the temperature control tracker inside the package and we monitor from the perspective of the shipment, right? So if I go back to this example that we have right here, and I see that, right, everything is fine, I have no idea what actually is happening to that shipment unless I overlay with the visibility steps. And then if I see the visibility step and we can put the business logic here that in that visibility step, which is essentially when the plane is landed, because we have this information from the satellite, plane landed. So we know what the time plane landed. Now we going to know from airway bill when that shipment is accepted by that, I mean the ground handler. We know what that period is going to be. We can value that in the historical data and just even create that the risk model saying, well, in this airport, that's what usually happens. Okay, so you got to be very careful on that. And even though it is okay, but it's an upper end, make sure that if you pass the half hour, you're going to start making calls because you don't want to get to the excursion. Because if you get to the excursion before you calling, before you alerting, before you start communicating, it's going to be another 5-10 minutes, maybe half an hour, maybe 2 hours. Okay, and that might be too late for this particular product. So you have a variety of the options here to look at from the different perspective. We have also, as the last minute, because I'm just at the point I have to relinquish my screen to Damien. This is basically control panel. So you as the user, as an administrator user, because you're being invited to that platform, you can invite other ones under your umbrella. So you add the new organizations, divisions, subdivisions. Then you add the locations, the regions, and users. How simple is this? But of course, we can help you out to get from A to Z. Having said that, I'm going to hand it over back to Damien.
Thank you, Tom. And we can go deeper in separate calls, but that's what we wanted to share. So just back to the presentation for a simple slide on, and before opening up to questions. So just in practical terms, what does it take to get started on BioNX? And maybe Carla, you can help us detail what's in it in terms of initial configuration, reviewing the SOP, the RASI that you spoke about.
Right. And Damien, I think as we illustrated, everybody has a slightly different perspective. So setting up at the user level for based on the roles that their particular individuals and the people within the community are going to play, they're literally sitting down, looking at the process, looking at the key milestones, and then integrating the standard operating procedures and identifying the core documents that need to be available. Because as Tom illustrated, the documents can be available in the system, and it's important to make sure that those that are needed are included in the initial setup so that you don't end up scrambling for documents while the goods are in transit. So setting it up, identifying the roles and the rules, who can see what and when, what information do they need to provide, and making sure that the key milestones and the critical control points are identified, and then that is put into the templates, which become the workflow for the system. So I think it's really a pretty simple implementation, and it's like taking the building blocks, Lego pieces, and configuring them based on your role in that community, as well as what information you want to see.
And so, thank you, Carla. So, Tom, it's also about onboarding, right? You want to be able to onboard the partners, the key partners we spoke about around the biotech, right? So, how do you do that? And what's the timeline?
Yeah, so this is a really good question, right? So the timeline is not that extensive. If you asked me this question 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I would say a month, right? This in this stage of the technology comes down to the weeks, a couple months, the most, and probably the most time consuming is basically creating the templates, right? This RACI templates. But once you have that RACI templates and you successfully execute that, you can save that as the template in the system, and then reuse this over and over. Of course, you can change that. You can add the modification, etc. But you have the capability of doing this. So to be safe, right? Because sometimes certain shippers and the partners coming up with the different type of devices that we don't have the integration, let's say. It may take up to the 3 months, but that's really the top that we foresee, unless you want to have like some special integration with the other systems. If you integrate along the protocol that we are defined in RACI metrics, is quite easy, and we have the framework because I'm actually sitting in a committee as well for the tracker devices. Any other organization, all the tracker devices, the modern they work very similarly. They have some kind of a cloud, and you connect to it. You just have to have the IP device, and you get basically the geolocation together with the temperature or other measure metrics that they capture, and then you co-integrate essentially with Catalyx. So on the Catalyx is really easy way to do that, as long as those API are set up. Right? We just connect to it and fetch that information.
All right, so we can discuss all that specifically with each stakeholder interested. And that's the point of this contact us, right? You can reach out to Carla or myself for a deeper dive into your situation and the system itself. But the point is, it's simple to onboard, simple to set up, simple to get you started and take you from there. Thank you, Tom and Carla and Devendra. Let's open up for questions now. We have 3 questions, and I'm going to take them. The first question is, it's a question for Tom. Is this a validated system, or will a third party have to validate it? And that's a key question.
Yeah, so I assume that validating, meaning that usually, at least in this region in the United States, right? We're talking about validation, CFR Part 11 compliance. There are basically just a different regulatory for each different regions, but we can basically probably take that as the baseline. What has been that validated? Well, usually the validation, right, is a self-assessment, or you have the third-party vendor. We do have a third-party vendor that assess whether our setup in the runtime environment is correct. And we're running this on AWS. They have a variety of different templates for the HIPAA compliance, for the CFR Part 11, etc. So we are compliant with this, okay? And we can basically, provide certification of that compliance because we have been validated by the AWS system for that. As far as the third party, yes, we have a strong relationship with one of the vendors who is basically helping us with all the compliance in cybersecurity services. They're going to basically also attest, but if someone wants to do, which that's not unusual, some other assessments by third party, we are open, for those ventures as well.
Thanks, Tom. Another question from Ryan Pedroni. There's a question on, well, thank you. This solution looks amazing, thanks. And the value realization is only possible if the vendor partner are committed and incentivized to actively collaborate. Which major CMO distribution vendor do you already have commitment to this, etc.? You're absolutely right on the need to be very open to make it simple, actually, for those CDMO in particular to collaborate natively. And for that, it needs to be of value to them. And so we cannot tell you the names, but we are actively talking to a number of major ones, CDMO, and maybe that's going to be announced at BSMA later next month. But it's true that it's very important to mobilize this leadership on the CDMO side. And you know that the CDMO own a major value part of the value chain, right? On the manufacturing side, in some situation on the case management side, on the packaging side. So absolutely true. And it's all about momentum that we're helping to create here. Same with your other question, Ryan, on which major influential biotech clients are excited to join or are onboarding. And same answer here. There's a number of big or small biotech already mobilized. I would say on the precision therapy mostly, cell and gene therapy, gene therapy, radio pharma, radioligand. And that's again about leadership. But it's not, you don't need to wait for some of the major ones to join. And my guess is that the most agile ones are going to be the mid-sized ones. But that's a guess. And it's actually faster to get them started. I don't see any other question, but I'd like to
Damien,
there are two
Damien,
other, I think.
Damien, may I make an observation, please?
Yeah.
So I was going to say that if I'm a CRO or a CDMO, I am aggregating a lot of small and medium-sized clinical stage companies, am I not?
Yes.
And if I offered this platform to my numerous customers who are sponsors of the drug development process, what a service I'm providing to them. What kind of efficiency and efficacy I'm achieving with this infrastructure that does not exist today. So in my mind, it's a natural for the ecosystem, particularly for the aggregators. Because the clinical stage companies, many of them, if this is their only product that they're trying to commercialize, it's tough to be doing all these things you're talking about. They need to develop the drug. They need to go through phase 3, 4, and so on. So this whole information-driven business that they're in can be really helped with an infrastructure like this.
And can I add to that, Devendra?
Yes, Karen.
From my experience, and I've worked with the primary CDMOs that are in the industry, as well as some of the CROs, and I find that one of the biggest challenges is if I'm a small biotech company and I'm now going to transition as part of my technology transfer process, and I need to sit down with my partners and explain exactly how I am producing things, how things are currently being moved. And so, in many cases, the process development is a big piece of that. And having the templates that we've already established in some of the process steps and the industry best practices that we have integrated into our templates helps with this process. So if I'm a CDMO and I'm onboarding a biotech company, I can give them a blueprint and a playbook and say, this is the information I need from you so that I can serve you in the best possible way. So, from my perspective, that is an enormous value add because it can take months and months to onboard, and we don't want to waste time because these are life-saving drugs.
And so thank you, Carla, for this clarification. You're right. That's a good point. There's another question from Dennis on, and maybe it's a question for Tom. Beside the tracker, the tracking device, the data logger, right? Is there any other external source of data needed to get this up and running efficiently?
Well, the simple answer to this, yes, the more we have, the better, right? But here's the thing, right? I mean, there's a lot of sources of the data that are available for this. And we're talking about, let's say, the latency on the airlines, on the planes, reconnecting to essentially to the data that we know, what's the average, plane latency is, how many times it has been rescheduled, and etc. right? We have a real-time information where that plane is located, right? We have a real-time we have a real-time information that has been rescheduled or not, right? The same thing with let's say the deep sea marine traffic, right? That's the same thing, although not applicable much for the precision therapies,
So you can
right? But
enrich, sorry to interrupt, Tom.
yeah,
You say you can enrich those data, the tracking device and the information you get already by systems from airlines, for instance, FlightAware, or by any external data source that would just
absolutely.
enrich
Weather,
the.
yeah, weather conditions, traffic. I mean, a lot of different data sources helps basically to estimate the risks instead of giving you the real time,
Right.
applicability to it. What's really important is the adherence to the process and adherence basically to the KPI that you set it up. Okay, that's basically is driven by everything. And this
Right.
is not like additional data sources, but essentially, adherence basically is someone upload particular document or not, right? I mean, this is
Right.
important, right? Do they communicate? Is that, and
Right.
that's based everything on erasing, right? That has been
Okay.
developed.
So that's the core of the platform, right? And it does not need external data. You can enrich by having further data. Got it. There's another question on once the system is set up after 2, 3 months, how quickly can other vendors or systems be integrated and be live on the platform? Journey kind of thing. How long does it take to go to phase 2 of the journey, which is integration of more vendors?
Right. So I think it's the same answer that I gave it to before, right? If you asked me that 20 years ago or 10 years ago, the answer will be like a multi-month or year. These days, as long as the system has the open APIs and everyone is moving that direction, everyone, they are required by variety of the stakeholders that like to collaborate to have the open APIs to the systems. Once you have that open, it's just very easy because the way how we architected our system is based on the protocol. So when we know who needs to be notified, who is responsible, accountable, what data points we need at, it's basically just a very precision way to get the information, not like, bing bang integration with someone else's system.
Right. Another question on systems as well for Tom. There's actually a myriad of systems. So many companies have a lot of system in place, right? WMS, TMS, EQMS, you name it, portals, ERP. And it's a fact, it's a legacy of as they grow, they have more and more systems. And they are typically in silo, right? So how do you integrate into those and bring an umbrella together on top of that?
Right. It's again, the answer is about the protocol. It's all about the protocol, right? I don't think that, and that never been intention to create a system that replaces all. It was always that protocol based, meaning that if we'll define the protocol and we agree on the protocol, how we basically integrate the system that enrich that protocol. And some of the systems that are at the vendors are not necessarily needs to be integrated. I mean, there are basically specific to that particular organization that already invested in assets and millions of dollars, let's say, over the past 15, 20 years, that does not need to be discarded. What we need to do, right, to make the collaboration smooth, okay, between all the stakeholders is basically this data point that necessary to fulfill this protocol, the visibility and adherence to that protocol. So the quick answer to this is you don't need to integrate with all the systems. You just need to basically integrate the small subset, I would say, okay, that or depends, okay, the scheduling, let's say, of that protocol, the patient in a certain tasks. And if there are KPIs that you need to measure outside of that can be bring that in, but it's probably just a case by case. But my point of view of that on this is that not all the systems needs to be integrated, and it's perfectly okay if you have legacy systems, because sunsetting something, if you've been in that business, is just not happening over the year or two, right? It's basically the multi-year process.
So Devendra, we've reached the hour. I'm mindful of people's time.
I think we needed one more hour, Damien.
No, but we can take it offline with each of you interested. We'll share the presentation, the contact. We can go deeper into any detail, etc. separately.
I would just say I want to thank all three of you for making the demo possible for the large community of ours. Number two, I'd like to thank all the people that have participated today. Even as of this moment, there are more than 30 people online listening to all of you. The final point I want to make is, a clinical trial, a drug development process costs as much as $100 to $200 million. That's a typical investment made. And what you have demonstrated is, if we have the kind of information system that you're enabling these companies to have access to, I think the efficiency and the efficacy of drug development will go a long, long way. And I just going to say that let this dialogue continue. Let people sign up and figure out for themselves. And as all of you rightly said, and the questions were so appropriate, that the ecosystem needs to be built. The CROs, CDMOs, the sponsors all have to connect to get maximum value. It's a win-win situation. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone and say so long. And as I promised earlier, the presentation will be in your email box before the end of the week. And looking forward to seeing you at the conference in March, where we can have this discussion in person. So thank you and so long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.